Hey there, I'm Lance and I'm a gamer.
And I'm Sam and I'm a non-gamer.
And we are Love to Hate, where we help gamers find great games to play with non-gamers.
And today we're taking a look at Maple Valley by Kids Table Board Games.
Maple Valley is the spiritual sequel to Creature Comforts. In fact, that's right here on the box, Creature Comforts. And it's designed by the same designer, Roberta Taylor, and it's the same illustrator, Shauna Tinney, who does a lot of the kids' table board games, as you could tell by the look of this. Fantastic artwork in this game, too, by the way. But with this game, you are going to be playing a game that has some similarities to Creature Comforts. You'll be collecting resources to build different cards that are going to give you points, that are also going to give you extra points if they're parts of different sets or meet certain scoring conditions and that sort of thing. And you want to be on certain parts of the map to get your resources. But there are no dice in this game, and that is the major difference between Maple Valley and Creature Comforts. So we're going to show you how this game works. We're going to tell you what we think of it from a gamer and non-gamer's perspective, but we're also going to tell you what sets this game apart from Creature Comforts and help you to maybe decide whether or not you need both of these games, or if you need one over the other, or just what. So let's go down to the table. We'll show you how it works, and then we'll come back and share our thoughts on it. All right, I have Maple Valley on the table. Let me show you guys this game about moving your critter around the board, trying to pick up different resources, and completing these favor cards over here for victory points. Now, what you see here, this is the upgraded Kickstarter edition of the game that's going to have wooden components that are painted with the game trays insert, and all of these components are extremely nice. I do recommend that if you can swing for the Kickstarter edition with this game, that you do go ahead and get it, because these resources are amazing. And it is a huge upgrade from that than the retail cardboard chipboard tokens. As you can see, these wooden pieces are pretty chunky wooden pieces, and they are fully painted, so that's really nice. Now, in addition to those components, you do have a pretty big board. I'm going to pan the camera up here a little bit to show you just how big the board is. Just know that you will be keeping track of the rounds up here with this these sun tokens. I know they're blue, but they're supposed to blend in with the sky, and then you flip them over, and they're going to be yellow to look like a sun, and they're going to fit in these outline spaces. There are 5 rounds in the game, but otherwise we're going to keep the camera panned down here to this half of the board, because this is where most of the action is going to be happening throughout the course of the game. In addition, you got lots of cards. You do have some chipboard tokens even in the retail edition of the game that you're going to be placing out here on the board. These curiosity tokens that are going to be on some of the pathways, you've got 3 down here, and you've got 3 that are going to be up here on the top half of the board. These 3 are going to be shuffled up and placed on these 3 spots at random, and the 3 up there at the top, same thing. So there's going to be some change up with those curiosity tokens, and then these tokens are either going to have a colored leaf on the background to match one of the spots where it can go, or it's going to have a question mark to tell you that it can go in any one of the spots that have question marks. So that's how these tokens are going to get randomized throughout the course of every time you play this game. Now, everybody does have a player board that's going to act as like their satchel pouch, because you are a critter and you're going on an adventure through the country and over rivers and through the woods to Grandma's house. And not really Grandma's house, but you get the idea. And how this game is going to work, you're going to be playing these friend cards. You'll start the game with 1 friend card that is going to be pretty much the same for every player. And it will allow you to go on any type of trail that you see on the board. You've got water trails that go through the water, of course. You've got mountain trails that go over mountains. And you've got forest trails that are going to go through the forests. And you have to play friend cards that match that particular colored trail to allow you to be able to go along that path. Now, when you play one of these cards, you're going to go as far along that colored path as you want to go. So for instance, playing a green trail doesn't just let me go here, but it could let me go from there to there. And you can follow along that path as far as you want or are able to. So again, following a green path, I could go from here to here to here to here. So you can get the idea of just how much you can string these turns together to get from point A to way up here on point B. But That's what your friend cards are going to let you do. And along the way, you're going to be picking up different resources to complete these favor cards over here for victory points to hopefully place on festival cards by the end of the game to get even more victory points at the end of the game. Let me explain to you how a round is going to work in this game. You will play one of your friend cards. You only start with one of these basic ones, and hopefully you pick up more along the way through the course of the game. But you will play a friend card to the middle spot on your player board, this section right here, and you will do whatever is on the particular card, because every card does have a special ability. This one in particular lets you gain a curiosity. We'll come back to what that does for you in a second. And then following whatever emblems are up here in the top left corner, you can go along one of those paths. So you can't do all three of these with this particular friend. You can only just do one. And so as I just explained to you, you could go as far as you want to go on one colored line. And so I could follow this mountain path all the way up here to this spot. And then once you get to that spot, you can do whatever's on that spot, the action that's available to you. Or if you would like, you can play a map token. Now, map tokens can be played either before or after your friend card, but they're going to let you go across one path of any type. So once I get here, I could play one of those map tokens and go up here if I wanted to, for instance. And then I could play another map token if I wanted to spend another one. But anyhow, when you end your movement, you will enact whatever the action is at that particular spot. All of the spots that are going to be out here that kind of have these two resource tokens next to them, they're going to work very simply. You are going to gain two resources, and they can be both of one of the two types that are there, or one of each of the two types. And so in other words, I could get two of this type, two of this type, or one of each. And that's at every single one of those leaf spots that you see out on the board. These spots in the middle, they're going to give you different things. Let's start with this one right here. This spot right here is going to give you two map tokens and let you take any one of the favor cards that are going to be over here on the right side of the board. These favor cards are going to have conditions or payment requirements right here on the left side, and victory points that you can get if you pay these requirements before the end of the game. And so, in other words, if I had these 4 items, I could cash that in and make 7 points at the end of the game. Now, as is the case with Creature Comforts, if you've played Creature Comforts, these kind of cards are going to look very familiar to you. It's the same similar concept. A lot of them have requirements at the bottom here that will give you extra points if you meet that before the end of the game. So in other words, I can get 2 more points if I also have a jug. And a jug would be a type of card. Here's an example of how cards can combo off of each other. The tambourine gives me 4 points, but it gives me 2 extra points if I have the fiddle. As you can see, every card's going to have a type on it. These are obviously music cards. And the reason why that's important is that's going to come into effect with the festival cards. Now, you have lots of festival cards. You're only going to play with a certain number of these every time you play the game. And they're going to have different spots for you to try and fill up, and you're going to block off some of these depending on how many players you're playing in the game. I'm realizing you probably can't see that. So as you can see, there's more spots available to you when you are playing with more people. And when you go to this spot right here with that cube action, you can take one of your player cubes and place it on one of the spots for a favor that you have already completed, matching the type for type. And then if it's got an action down here at the bottom, you could probably do that action, but you're also going to try and get victory points for having the most cubes on these cards, because whoever has the most cubes is going to get 1 point for every cube plus 4 points, and whoever has second most is going to get 1 point for every cube plus 2 points. Everybody else is only going to get just 1 point for their cubes on this card. And then again, these actions down here may have something to do for you if you are the person who has the most, or if you fill it up, because you want to try to be the last person to put a cube on these cards when they fill up, because then that's when this action activates. So that's how these are going to work. A lot of in-game points there for you, but basically the idea is trying to pick up the resources to complete these cards. Now, if you get back down here to this bottom spot, that's going to let you get one of these friend cards, which again is super important because you need friends to travel along the pathways. But if you have no more friend cards in your hand, then you have to pass and you're out of the round. So the friend cards are going to allow you to stay in the rounds longer to be able to take more actions. Now, the friend cards are going to work the same way as the favor cards in that they have a cost printed on them, so you need to have that to be able to get this friend. They're going to give you victory points. They're going to allow you to travel along certain types of trails, but they're also going to give you a special ability. Now, the friends are going to require curiosities, and that's what these are on the pathways, and so you get those whenever you cross over that pathway. They kind of work just like the resources. They're just a different type of resources. You've got some flowers, some pebbles, and some bugs. But anyhow, that's how that's all going to work. These are going to be patches, and you get a patch when you come here to this spot right here. Patches you can just claim. They're going to give you a number of victory points at the end of the game for just having it, but then they're going to give you a special ability that you can do throughout the course of the game, or maybe they give you another way to score points at the end of the game, as this rock climbing patch here is going to give you 2 more points for each rock traveling friend you have, including your starter. So these can be really good for you to get little bonus points along the way. Now I'm going to pan up here towards the top half of the board to show you the rest of what's going on. As I've already said at the beginning, this is the round tracker. You're going to flip one of these sun tokens over every round, and it's going to have a printed icon on it, and that's going to correspond to some of the spots on the board. These are going to be trading posts that you can go to and take trading posts actions. Trading resources listed here for resources listed here. You can do any one of these 3 down on the board here, and you can also do this action that's printed down here on the bottom. But when you see the sun icon, it's referring to the icon that's on the resource that's on the sun for that particular round. And then there's going to be some that are going to have a sun that looks blue, and they're going to refer to any previous rounds, because at the end of the round, you'll put that resource on top of it. You'll flip it back over to the blue side, and that'll remind you that that was a leaf. And if you wanted to do the blue sun icon, you could choose to do leaf. Now that might not make sense to you, but hopefully it does. And just know that there are lots of trading outpost cards that you could use to replace these ones if you don't like them, or if you want to try to shake up the game and add some variability with that. When you get all the way up here to the top of the board, you're going to gain 3 resources for the sun, whatever it is for that particular round. And then you're going to teleport way back down here to the bottom and get to do that friend action. So you get to take 2 actions if you go up there. So that's pretty cool. Otherwise, that's pretty much the gist of the game. You're going to be traveling around the board and trying to pick up resources and friends and complete favors along the way. If at the end of a round, someone has more friend cards in their reserve or in their hand than another player, then all other players who have fewer friend cards get to take these dwaddle cards to fill up their hands to be the same size as the person who has the most friends. And these dwaddle cards you're going to play for just resources that are on the card. And that's it. That's your whole entire turn. You just get to gain these resources. You don't get to move around the board or take any actions or anything like that. It just lets you kind of have another turn so that you're not just passing and sitting there waiting for everybody else to finish their hands. You get to stay in the round to a certain extent. You're just getting resources, and that's it. That's all these dwaddle cards let you do. That's why they have a snail on them. But anyhow, that's pretty much the gist of the game. The game is going to end at 5 rounds, and then you're just going to add up points for basically everything. You're going to get points for your friends, points for the favors you completed, bonus points off of any favors that you've met the conditions for down there. You're going to get points for your patches, which you can only ever have 4 patches, of course. And then you will score these festivals and give points out based off of whoever has the most cubes and doing these actions down here on the bottom of the cards. And that pretty much is it. So it's a bit of a point salad, but whoever has the most points is going to be the winner in this game. Now let's go back up top and share our thoughts on this one.
And we're back, and now we're going to share our thoughts here on Maple Valley from a gamer and non-gamer's perspective. So Sam, let's start by talking about creature comforts first.
and let the people know what we thought about that game. I'll start. Creature Comforts was one of my favorite games that came out of 2022. If you'll watch our top 10 video of 2022, which you can click the eye in the top right corner, it'll take you to that video. You'll know that that game was in my top 10 for that year, and I really, really enjoyed it. I liked the kind of gambling aspect. I don't gamble, but I like that aspect in that game.
Except in board games.
Where you're banking on what the dice are going to be after you've placed out your workers.
And I do not.
And that might not work out for you because you might not get the dice that you needed. So there is a luck factor with Creature Comforts, but I enjoyed that tenseness with that game. And it had similarities to this game in that, like I said at the top of the video, you need to go to certain locations to get your resources to build cards for points.
Yeah.
So you already kind of mentioned you didn't like the dice as much as I liked the dice in Creature Comforts.
I don't like
variability
gambling.
in luck.
Yeah. I like to have a plan, and I like to plan ahead a little bit, and I don't like not having to change your plan at the last minute.
Sure. Or your plan just not even working because the dice didn't go your way. So, but yeah. And that was a factor with Creature Comforts, and I think that was something that was maybe a tough pill for some people to swallow. I enjoyed it. But you don't have that with this one, with Maple Valley. You replace the dice and with trying to solve the puzzle of how to move about the map, because that is the most restrictive part of the game, I feel like, is figuring out how to get from point A to point B, because you can only travel along certain paths that you have cards, your friends, that allow you to move on those paths.
Yeah.
And so you're really having to figure out that puzzle aspect of using your friends to get where you need. What was your experience like having to figure out that puzzle in this game?
I think at the end of the game, I was getting extremely frustrated, which is not typically, like, I'll get mad sometimes if I'm losing, but we didn't really know who was winning or not. But I was getting so frustrated because I had a plan and it wasn't working out, and I was getting so angry. And I think Lance thought it was funny because I don't typically get that worked up at a game.
I thought it was funny because you were very successful in this game.
Yeah.
And it was like you felt like you should be even more successful than what you were, which I just thought was so funny. It was like, you're not doing bad. Why are you so mad?
I was so mad though, because I said I have this plan. I can't do this. I need to do this, this, and this, but I can only do this, and there's no point. Like, he's just looking at me like,
you're crazy.
Yeah.
But no, I think what Sam's talking about is to be said with this game, that it's not an easy puzzle to figure out. It is restrictive. Is it something that some people might enjoy that restrictiveness, and some people might feel like it teeters too much on that frustration line?
It definitely,
I think it does.
A fine line.
It is a fine line. It teeters right there. I enjoyed it, even if I didn't do so great in the game. Even if there were times where I felt like, man, I just don't know how I can make that work. I still enjoyed the whole experience of having to try and figure out, well, if I can't make that work, then what else can I do? Where else can I get my points? And the thing about this game is there's lots of ways to get your points in the game.
Yeah.
You can get patches. You can picking up more friends get you points. I mean, it feels like it's a bit of a point salad in that everything kind of gives you points. But you always want to try to do the main thing, which is getting the resources to build the cards, right? Like that's sort of like the main thing of what you're supposed to be doing in this game, and that's not always the most easy thing to figure out. Fun factor wise, for you, what was maybe fun about this game that kept you invested? Because like I said, you did really well in this game.
Yeah, I mean, it is a fun game. I did not get super frustrated till the end, because it's one of those things like you're trying to get everything that you can out of it at the very end, and you only have 2 moves left, and how do you do those moves? But as far as the gameplay, I thought it was really well done. Right on that edge of too restrictive, but I don't think it crossed that line. There was a lot to figure out as far as the path and the cards and your resources and what order you were doing those in and what order you're playing the cards in. I really enjoyed the strategy of it. I really enjoyed the resource management, and I just feel like, and maybe it is because I've played enough games that I'm not having to learn how to do resource management and things like that. But I do feel like it was a good game for non-gamers.
Okay.
I think it's nice to have that gamer there to kind of ask questions of and to make sure that you are managing your resources and moving correctly, and to be able to say, does this make sense if I do this or this? I mean, obviously it depends on what kind of, some gamers may be like, you're on your own. But yeah, good luck.
Don't play with those people.
Yeah. But I do feel like it is simple enough. The idea is simple. The iconography is easy to understand. The idea of the game is easy to understand.
Okay.
But you are learning how to manage a couple of different things at once.
Okay. Let's get to pros and cons for this one. Sam, what to you are the highlights of that make this a good game for non-gamers?
I feel like they've done a really good job with the resources and the
Yes.
resources that are on the board. The different ways to get them, the different ways to get what were the things on the friends?
The friends.
Getting the friends, and how that helps you quite a bit. But you do have to be pretty strategic and pretty methodical about what you're doing, because it isn't an abundance of resources.
Right.
You really have to get what you need, not just go somewhere because it's available for you to go there.
Yeah. Yeah, this game is a game, even though the box says 60 minutes, it sort of feels like it feels like the game is wrapping up sooner than what it is. Or maybe that's not what I mean. It feels like, man, it's over, and
I need one more.
I need one more turn, right?
Yeah.
And that's the sign of a good design, I feel like, because if you felt like I did everything I wanted to, well, then what was the challenge, right?
Yeah.
Like there needs to be that, but it almost feels like you have that from jump start, right? Like the first round is like, I've got these two lousy friends that can only get me from here to here, and I'm picking up nothing.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's like, whoa, the game's already a third of the way over.
Yes.
Like, so you do have that tension built in in the game.
You know, I say that I got mad at the end, but to us that's kind of a sign of a good game, because
you actually cared.
I was invested enough to care.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
And that's the thing about it. The tension makes you want to care, I think, with this one. So other things I think that we should really point out is just the fantastic illustrations and this universe that Shauna Tenney has kind of created with the artwork and the way the characters look. I think is a really fantastic thing with this game. And Kids Table Board Games, with their production value on this game, I mean, is fantastic. So they did a really good job with creature comforts, and they doubled down and did even better. I mean, even a better job here with Maple Valley. So I think that's it needs to be said in this video. Anything about it that maybe doesn't stick out so great for you? I told this to Lance, and it probably was just because I needed to go to a very specific place and I couldn't get there. I thought the map icon, or the map coins, didn't do what I wanted them to do. I understood that, yes, it got you from one place to another, but you had to follow a specific path. But some of those paths just felt like, I'm in this place. None of those paths get me to where I need to go. I wanted it to be able to lift me up and go wherever I wanted. I feel like if you had like maybe one or two the entire game and you couldn't get any more, so I could have won more. I get, because I have that feeling too with the game, right? Like there are just moments in it where the restrictiveness is like, I just don't think I can figure out a way to make it work, right? And not that it leaves you feeling hopeless. It is satisfying when you do figure it out, and I get it. It's supposed to feel that way. Well, but to what you're saying, I mean, there are patches that let you do just that let you kind of teleport in a sense. So you really, but you're limited to what patches come out, and you're limited to what both of us felt limited with. What are the friends and the favors? The favors, because neither one of us, I think, got favors that complemented. You would see the other person would have one, but you wouldn't get it, and I think that. But again, so that is to be said, and I think that was the thing with creature comforts as well, is that, and it's the case with any card with games, is that there's a luck factor with what comes out. And if the card you need comes out on their turn and they get it and you don't, you couldn't have done anything about that. So that's just a thing with card games. But when you're talking about a game like this, where there's so much restrictiveness of getting those resources,
well, and you had to be in certain places on the board as well. And I think that was frustrating me because I was like, I have the resources to do this, but now I have to use a whole turn to get to the place I need to go to use the resources.
Right. Okay, so let's get to our final scores, but also we're going to throw in the little part too about, do you need this over creature comforts, and just kind of talk about that for a split second. So, Sam, let's start with you. What score do you give Maple Valley?
I liked it, and I got really upset, and but I did like it, and I want to play it again because I feel like I figured it out.
Okay.
I could do better.
She's going to get just as mad the next time
around.
around.
Lose too. But I really did like it. It's one of the better games that we've played this year. I'd probably give it an 8.2.
Wow. Okay. You like it quite a bit.
Yeah.
I am not as high on this one as I was on Creature Comforts, and I think it's just simply for the fact that I really liked the dice aspect, which I know is probably not a popular opinion. No. I know most people don't like the dice aspects, like in any kind of game, and would rather there be more strategy to their games.
I'd like to know that I won because of my strategy, not because of luck.
And I get that. I think for me, there was just that tenseness of the gambling aspect, right? Like I'm banking on the right dice coming out, and we're going to roll with it. And if it doesn't, then you got to come up with another plan. Like, I liked that kind of aspect with it. And I think with Maple Valley here, what it gives you, whereas it doesn't give you that tenseness of it, it gives you that I've got to figure out that I got to point A to point B to pick up the resources. Now, how do I get from point B to point C to actually cash in on those resources, but then also set me up for the next turn, right? Like, because you can only be in one spot, and you need to be efficient with that movement because the game is going to wrap up soon, right? So there is that puzzliness of that efficiency of the moving about the board, which is fun. So all in all, I think I'm going to give this game an 8, a solid 8.0 on it. I can't honestly tell you what my score was for Creature Comforts because that's been a minute since we did that video and I didn't go back and watch it, but I do think it was higher than that because
I don't think mine was.
It was in my top 10, and I definitely think it would have been higher than 8 for it to be in my top 10 of 2022. So right before we wrap up this video, let's touch on the topic of this versus Creature Comforts. I think, and just speaking as somebody who's played both, who owns both, we still have Creature Comforts. It's right back here. I know you can't see it. I think you will be very pleased to have either one of these games. I think they both do similar things, but they're different games. They're entirely different games, and they will give you different feels. I think if you're like me and you like that kind of gambling aspect, that tension of not knowing what's going to come, you got imperfect information to work with, then Creature Comforts is maybe the one to go with.
And if you don't like to be frustrated, well, don't play either game. But if you
don't like dice,
if you don't like dice, then this is probably
But this is the more strategic game too, I feel like. Yeah. Because you definitely have to be efficient and plan ahead, and that there's still some luck involved with the cards, but the board is static in that you know that the resource that you need is there. That's not going to change. Whereas in Creature Comforts, that did change. Every round was a little bit different, and what dice you needed to get those resources might change on the next turn. Dice change every round, so that's not a huge factor, but there's definitely more strategy with this game. So if you're somebody who wants more strategy out of a game like Creature Comforts, then Maple Valley is going to be the one to go for. So anyhow, that's our thoughts there on Creature Comforts and Maple Valley, both from Kids Table Board Games. Leave us some comments down below. Let us know what you think about this game.
Make sure to like and subscribe and push that bell button so you get notifications of all our new content.
I'm Lance.
I'm Sam.
And we are Love to Hate, where we try to bridge the gap between gamers and non-gamers. We'll catch you next time.